Silver and gold costs rally. Stocks hold close all-time highs. On Friday, U.S. stocks held close all-time highs, whereas the run-up in valuable metals broke modern ground. Front-month silver prospects surged 7.7% to around $76.49 a troy ounce, expanding a record run that has more than multiplied costs this year, whereas clearing up divider road stars and beginner financial specialists alike. Gold prospects moreover hit records, rising around 1.1% to $4,529.10 a troy ounce. One calculate boosting valuable metals, which are frequently seen as a safe house for anxious speculators, raising geopolitical pressures. The U.S. organized a Christmas Day strike on Islamic State in Nigeria and has barred authorized oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuelan waters. U.S. unrefined prospects rose 0.4% this week, snapping a two-week streak of declines. U.S. stock lists swung between little picks-ups and misfortunes in lean exchanging, sometime between wrapping up marginally lower. The Dow Jones Mechanical Normal, S&P 500, and NASDAQ Composite all fell less than 0.1%. Major U.S. lists indented a fifth straight session of picks-ups on Christmas Eve, with both the S&P 500 and the Dow Industrials closing at records. Stocks regularly rise in the period crossing the final 5 exchanging days of the year and the 2 begin with of the another, in what is now and then named a Santa Claus rally. Keith Buchanan, Senior Portfolio Director at Global Speculations, said the market's execution at year-end proceeds to be driven by the tech monsters that have overwhelmed 2025, in spite of the fact that segments such as small caps and worldwide stocks have at lastly started to catch her up since early November. The showcase is beginning to feel like it needs to broaden out, he said. There's nearly this historical wait for the bull market to broaden out if it's going to continue. On Friday, the metals rally lifted offers of mine workers, counting Southern Copper and Freeport-McMoRan, which rose 0.9% and 2.2% individually. Materials offers in the S&P 500 picked up 0.6%. NVIDIA stock climbed 1% after the chip creator late Wednesday divulged a licensing bargain with Grok, a semiconductor startup. Shares of Coupang, South Korea's e-commerce match to Amazon, hopped 6.4% after slipping in later weeks. The customer data spilled in an enormous cybersecurity breach has been erased by the suspect, agreeing to media reports. Numerous stock markets in Europe and Asia-Pacific remained closed on Friday, counting in the UK and Hong Kong. The Japanese yen slipped against the dollar after information showed Tokyo customer costs rose more slowly than anticipated in December, but held over the Bank of Japan's target. Japan's cabinet endorsed a record-high beginning budget for the another financial year. As markets revived Friday after the Christmas occasion, U.S. stocks were small changed, but valuable metals saw bounty of action. Silver costs bounced 9.6% to best $78 per ounce for the to begin with time ever. Gold rose 1.3% to a new record of $4,561 per ounce, and platinum surged 10.5% to its claim tall, while palladium jumped 13%. So this far this year, silver has spiked 169%, platinum has shot up 172%, and palladium has taken off 124%. all easily beating gold's year-to-date pickup of 73%, as well as Nvidia's 42% pop and the S&P 500's 18% advance. The latest rally came after the U.S. launched strikes on Islamic State in Nigeria on Thursday, adding to other geopolitical tensions. Earlier in the week, the Trump administration continued to heap on more pressure on Venezuela by targeting additional oil tankers, crushing a key source of revenue for the Maduro regime. Meanwhile, the Pentagon sent it large numbers of special operations airship, troops, and equipment into the Caribbean, sources told the Wall Street Journal. The added military resources join a flotilla of Navy ships that has been building up in the region for months, while President Trump hints that U.S. attacks will soon expand from suspected drug boats to targets on land. With the threat of another regional conflict breaking out, investors have sought out safe havens. At the same time, debt worries have made precious metals appear safer than other resources like the dollar and yen. Robin Brooks, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, said in a Substack post on Sunday that the so-called corruption trade has roared back, pointing out that precious metals started dashing higher after Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinted at rate cuts over the summer. First, this trade is clearly triggered by Fed easing and related stresses about debt monetization. After all, Chair Powell's dovish speech at Jackson Hap on August 22 and the latest Fed rate cut on December 10 were major catalysts for precious metals to take off. As the U.S. and other top economies tear towards increasingly unsustainable levels of debt, investors fear that those governments will let inflation run hotter and erode the value of their bonds to ease the burden, rather than reining in deficits. This corruption trade isn't just showing up in precious metals, Brooks added, noting that countries with low levels of public debt, such as Switzerland or Sweden, have seen their currencies move in pair with gold and silver prices. It's important that Sweden is so much in focus. The krona has traditionally been a highly volatile currency that didn't have safe haven properties. The debasement trade is changing that, he explained. Similarly, market experiencer Ed Yardeni attributed the surge in precious metals to concerns about excess stimulative effects of U.S. monetary and fiscal policies next year. That's as Wall Street anticipates more rate cuts from the Federal Reserve, which is also buying bonds again, while consumers will start to notice Trump's tax cuts. Trump has also teased the possibility of tariff dividend checks, although Congress would have to approve them. In any event, the federal budget deficit may swell significantly during the first 4 months of 2026, which could prompt the bond vigilantes to raise Treasury bond yields, causing a stock market correction.